Alright, ladies and gentlemen, we're on the last chapter. This will be the last chapter that we'll go through as we finish up our study of anatomy and physiology. This happens to be the reproductive system. Let's talk about the gonads. Gonads are the primary sex organs. That would be the testes in the males and the ovaries in the females. Yes, both males and females have gonads. The gonads produce gametes. These are the sex cells. They also secrete hormones, testosterone and estrogen and progesterone. The sperm is the male gamete. The ova, or the egg, is the female gamete. We're going to start off our discussion of the reproductive system with the male reproductive system. So let's begin. Overview. This is the organs of the male reproductive system. It's the testes. This also is connected to the duct system, which is the epididymis, the ductus deferens, and the urethra. When our study of the urinary system, we talked about that the urethra in males was for both sperm and for urine. Okay, so remember that. There are some accessory organs that we have to talk about. We've got the seminal vesicles, the prostate gland, the bulbourethral glands, also known as the Cowper's gland. The external genitalia consist of the penis and the scrotum. If we take a look here, you can see the overall view, side view of the male reproductive system. You'll see that the actual ductus deferens, the tube, runs over the top of the bladder. You can see the bladder, and the tube runs over the top of the bladder, around the back side of the bladder, as it goes through the big red item, which is the prostate. If we look at it from a frontal view, you can see that the tubes run from the scrotum, from the testes, up and over and around the back side of the urinary bladder there. There are some coverings. We're going to start talking about the testes first. The coverings of the testes is the tunic albuginea. This is a capsule that surrounds each of the testes. And inside we have is called the septa. These are extensions of the capsule that extend into the testes and divided into lobules. If we take a look at this diagram, you can see that there are different sections within the testes itself. And all of this is surrounded by the outside portion, the scrotum itself. Now each lobule consists of 1 to 4 seminiferous tubules. Okay, these seminiferous tubules are these tightly coiled little sperm-forming factories that are inside the testes itself. And each sperm empty into the rete testis before it heads down into the epididymis. On its way, as it gets to the epididymis, this is where it actually becomes mature, and it has to sit around in the epididymis for a few days before it actually becomes mature. Here is another diagram. The duct system, it goes from the epididymis through the ductus or the vas deferens to the urethra. Let's talk about the epididymis first off. This is a comma-shaped, tightly coiled tube. And here is what I said, it takes 20 days to store the sperm and for them to become mature. Now each sperm, with the contraction of the muscles, gets expelled out of the epididymis walls into the vas deferens. And the vas deferens is the tube that will take it towards the ejaculatory duct before it comes out the urethra. Here's another diagram. The tubes that go over the top of the bladder are the ductus deferens. The ductus deferens or the vas deferens. It was what carries the sperm from the epididymis to the ejaculatory duct. Now, the sperm moves by peristalsis. This is the same action that we find in the intestines, the same action we find in the urinary system. It's just a pushing it by the squeezing action of the muscles surrounding the muscle tissue surrounding the vas deferens. We have something what's called the spermatochord. This is a combination of the vas deferens, blood vessels, and nerves that are surrounded by a connective tissue sheath. And in this next diagram at the very top, you can see the spermatocord as all of that comes up into the body of the male. The ductus deferens ends at the ejaculatory duct. It has a little bit of an expanded end is called the ampulla. And then ejaculation occurs. That's the smooth muscles in the walls of the ductus deferens create a peristaltic wave to actually squeeze the sperm forward. Males have what's called a vasectomy. If they do not want to have any children, they can cut the ductus deferens at the level of the testes to prevent transportation of sperm. That does not mean that it will not transport semen. There is a difference between semen and sperm, and we'll get into that. The urethra extends from the base of the urinary bladder to the tip of the penis. It carries both urine and semen, or sperm, at the same time. Not at the same time. Urine has a acidic pH, which would kill the sperm, and we'll talk about what goes on. The sperm enters from the ejaculatory duct. There are 3 different regions of the urethra. They get the prostatic urethra. This is the area where the prostate surrounds the urethra. You've got the membranous urethra, which forms from the prostate urethra to the penis. And then you've got the spongy penile urethra, which runs from the length through the length of the penis itself. Okay, and here's where you can see that you've got the 3 different regions of the actual urethra itself coming out of the urinary bladder. Accessory organs, we've got seminal vesicles, you get the prostate, you get the bulbourethral glands. And we'll talk about all 3 of those. The seminal vesicles are located at the base of the bladder, and they produce a thick yellowish secretion, and this is 60% of the sperm. Part of this is fructose. You've got some vitamin C to act as an antibiotic. You've got prostaglandins in there and other substances that nourish and activate the sperm. Without the semen, the sperm are not going to be activated. They're not going to do their job. They have to swim, and they need energy to swim, and then some of that energy is going to come from this sugary fructose substance from the seminal vesicles. You can see here it's right behind the bladder, and it shows on this particular diagram. The prostate encircles the upper part of the urethra, and it secretes a milky fluid, and this also helps to activate the sperm. Again, the sperm have to swim, and so they're not in any kind of swim mode until they get into the semen and get the extra stuff that they need for energy in order to be able to swim all the way to the egg. And the last one here is the bulbourethral gland. This is a pea-sized gland inferior to the prostate, and it produces a thick, clear mucus. This fluid comes out first, and it cleanses the urethra of any kind of urine that might be in the urethra at the time, and it serves as a lubricant during sexual intercourse, and it's secreted into the penile urethra. It's not part of the prostate or any of the seminal vesicles or any of that. So it secretes its product directly into the penile urethra. And that's the end of section number 1 here on the male reproductive system.